This episode is brought to you by the Boot Chow Radio Podcast, episode 20. If you haven't listened to it yet, please click on the link on the description box below this video. And before I continue on, this is our 20th episode where we have a game show with 6 other contestants, and there are so many laughs and surprises in this episode. And without spoiling anything, listen to my pal Amuya because I never seen him this hyper.
So I'm gonna go with Linda Cruz.
Oh man, you guys will be shocked. Cause Sendu got it right.
What did I say?
You said Linda Cruz.
Fuck!
I feel your pain, man. I feel your brain torture.
No. Seriously, Laura Cruz was what I was thinking, and I said the wrong damn answer.
All right, everybody, we finally got a chance to. Okay, well, Amui's getting his freak down.
You know, in my 3D platformer video, I described a total of 3 3D platformer subgenres, and I already reviewed most of them, such as Point A to B and Task and Exploration type of 3D platformers. But it seems that I haven't done enough reviews on Mission and Collect type of 3D platformers. This type of 3D platformers, when you have a home world and a bunch of levels to select, with each of them to have missions to select, and after accomplishing that mission, you earn a major collectible that will advance you to other home worlds. I already reviewed the Vexx games, one of my favorites, and everybody should already know the Mario games, but I seem to be missing one more thing. Oh yeah, Vexx! I pity those who think that platformers are kiddie when there are plenty of platformers that appeal to the older audience such as Oddworld, Conker, Alice, Psychonauts, Ratchet & Clank, and Jak. And Vexx is one of those platformers that aim for the older audience. And it's a forgotten game that I wish that had more recognition because it is a really great platformer to check out. Here's what you need to know about the game. It's set on the planet Astara, a corrupted world that has already been destroyed into pieces by the Shadow Rafts. Luckily, the pieces of Astara still has life, with a large chunk of land floating in an asteroid field. Several hundred years after the corruption, a village known as Overwood, populated by a primitive race called the Valdar, a humanoid werewolf-like species, where they all live happily in one part of Astara, until one day the Shadow Raft came to overtake Overwood and conquer the Valdar. Each of them were beaten, tortured, and enslaved by the Shadow Rafts to do their dirty work. Our hero Vexx was working in the mines with his fellow Valdars until one day he grew vicious with the ones treating him badly and started to attack one of the guards. But his anger backfired when the leader Dark Yabu stopped him with his powerful spell. Just when Vexx was about to die, his grandfather sacrificed himself to save Vexx by attacking Yabu to have the leader instead to attack the grandfather and spare Vexx himself. Later that night, Vexx vowed vengeance against the Shadow Rafts by escaping the caves and sneaked out of the fortress. There, he encountered a powerful artifact, the Talons. They permanently attached themselves to Vexx's hands, at that time causing an explosion to destroy the wind ships and nearly killed Vexx. When he wakes up, Vexx is in the Hall of Heroes, where previous wearers of the War Talons have been entombed. An old man named Darby appears and informed him that it was he who carried Vexx to the hall. He also tells Vexx that Yabu completely destroyed the village and that Vexx and Darby are the only ones left. Darby, however, is too old to fight, so he instructs Vexx to collect the hearts of the dead Shadow Rafts, which still contains energy drained from the rift system, and use them to power the gates in order to find and stop Yabu before he opens the gate to his own world. Before Vexx departs, Darby warns him that the Rafts are shapeshifters and to trust no one along your journey, and thus Vexx's journey begins. Your objective of the game is to collect Shadow Raft hearts, which will advance you to other levels of the home world, but it requires a certain number of collected hearts in order to gain access to that level. And each level has plenty of missions for you to select, and after selecting that mission, you're off to that level and accomplish that mission in getting that heart. Luckily, you might end up finding a heart from another mission that you didn't select, but considering that selecting a mission in this type of 3D platformer isn't as simple as just doing what the mission commands you to do. In Super Mario 64, Sunshine, and the Galaxy games, they simply tell you what to accomplish, and Gex Enter the Gecko and Deep Cover Gecko, they show you what to accomplish once you select it. Here in Vexx, selecting a mission, you're giving a riddle of what you're supposed to be doing in each mission. This makes the player to think what they're supposed to do, and I applaud to Acclaim for putting such creativity in this game. You have a total of 10 levels, and they have a minimum of 8 missions to accomplish. But that's just enough to keep the player occupied in completing the game, considering that it takes a lot of time in beating any of those missions and collecting the hearts as your reward. Once you select any of the missions, you're set off in a non-linear world with so many things to do and plenty of places to go. Usually some of the missions of this game ask you to go to a certain area of the game, which puts you in a long journey in locating the hearts, beating a level's mini-boss, playing a mini-game, collecting 6 soul jars, similar to the red coins in Super Mario 64, collecting a total of 100 shards, and other various tasks that will reward you a heart depending on what the mission riddles you to do. Collecting those hearts are important because it grants you access to other levels up until you face the Dark Yabu as the final boss. And opening new levels requires certain numbers of collected hearts, so basically you're just looking for Shadow Wrath hearts like how other platformers do with their collectibles. Immediately when I first saw this game, I just couldn't believe the look of the level designs. Never have I seen such landscape in a video game that is just so mesmerizing to watch. I'm not talking about graphics, I'm talking about what specifically am I seeing in this game. Floating landscapes, giant households, oases, temples, and more. There is a great set of fantastic level designs in this very game, and most of the time I just love traveling around, glancing at many parts of the game. And to put a cherry on top, you got yourself an epic soundtrack that perfectly fits the atmosphere. While we're in the topic of level designs, I gotta say, wherever level you are, be aware that there are other portals that will lead you to another part of the level. So it's almost like a level within a level. And for the ones who haven't played this game yet, be warned that the level within a level are so challenging that it's a testament of your platforming skills. Here in Vexx, you can make long leaps, double jumps, climbing on various walls and poles, sliding, and all of these helpful techniques of playing the game. What set itself from other platformers is indeed the combat itself. With the power of Vexx's talons, you have the ability to beat the living hell out of any enemy you encounter. You can simply slay your foes, make rapid combos, juggle your enemies up in the air by executing numerous of air kicks, and shoot out a blast from the palm of your hands. Enemies in other platformers have enemies that can die in just one-hit kills, but here in Vexx, the enemies are absolutely vicious and they are not so easy to eliminate. Once they see you, they will not hesitate to cause harm on you. Considering that they have plenty of hit points in them, it takes quite a lot of damage to defeat them. It's a good thing considering that you want to make combos in this game because the more hits you cause on your enemies, the more scores you make to fill up your combo meter. Once the meter is full, you have the ability to unlock the Talon's powers, which grants Vexx the ability to run fast as hell and shoot out blast attacks from the palm of his hands, which causes instant kills on your enemies. This is very helpful when you're being ambushed by large numbers of enemies, and believe me, considering that they are hard to defeat is perhaps the most helpful thing in the game, but only for a little amount of time. But also there are other ways of giving your enemies one-hit kills, such as wearing the rock suit Vexx that give you a little amount of time when using them. Speaking of which, you can transform Vexx into various different suits, such as rock suit Vexx, which makes you invincible, cause instant deaths to anything that stands in your way, and run fast as hell for a certain number of time, and glider suit Vexx, which allows you to fly around the level, and more. These suits that Vexx wears drastically enhances the gameplay experience. If you think defeating enemies isn't challenging enough in this game, just wait until you see your enemies in the level at night. Speaking of which, what I really thought was really creative here in Vexx is the sundial. Since the game is set in real time, over the course of hours you stay in that level will indeed change the time set in that game. And when you accomplish a mission and you go back to that same level, the level puts itself ahead of time, making the levels feel different as you play them. The sundial, on the other hand, is the one thing that allows the player to actually change the set of time by rotating the sundial around. You actually have the power to change the level from morning to day to evening to night. And if you want your enemies to be more challenging, you would like to set it at night. But if you don't want this game to be any harder, then it's wise to keep the game to be set at daylight. But be warned, enemies at night are not easy to defeat at all. What also makes the sundial important is that it opens a sundial portal right to the sundial itself when you set in a specific time. Where does the sundial leave you to? Another level within a level. Boy, for a total of 10 levels, you sure have too many levels within a level, huh? By now, you should already know that this game is indeed challenging, but I haven't discussed about the hardest part of the game yet. You know what it is? The platforming. I'm one of those gamers who really want a great platforming experience, and Vexx provides one of the most brutal platforming segments that you can find in any video game. Never was there a game that made my hands sweat over platforming, only leaving my controller feel oily and sweaty. These platforms you end up are narrow, move fast, and they require great timing and plenty of trial and error. My main problem about the game is that many of the areas are so narrow that chances of falling are very high. You have invisible platforms, narrow paths, and so much more that keeps some part of the game to feel very intense to go through. To top it all down, you got many traps trying to kill you or push you off the edge, and also enemies in many of those narrow segments. And considering that they are hard to kill, this makes it too overwhelming at times. Sometimes you do know that the designers are really testing you by making some areas more and more narrow, where trial and error really does test your patience. I couldn't count how many times I thrown my controller because of those countless times I fell off and had to restart and getting back up to the top, or just instantly died. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. In a matter of fact, it's the total opposite, considering that there are a lot of 3D platformers today that are fairly easy compared to this 3D platformer. Not only the platforming is challenging, but also accomplishing many of those tasks takes a lot of time searching and guessing what the riddle of each mission is given to you is about, and when you find the pattern of how to get to that heart, prepare for some tough challenge. I really do admire how much Acclaim puts so much creativity on Vexx, because they put almost everything on the table which platformers haven't done before this game, and yet repeats the process of doing what other platformers already have done and made them even more challenging. From platforming into painting, playing a game within a game, and so much more, there isn't anything that I can find that is lacking, and it bothers me a lot that there are a lot of critics out there that didn't really give Vexx as much credit that it deserves. The one thing that deeply offended me that was put on Vexx was one statement on the Wikipedia article on this game, and I quote, "Many critics said that this game arrived too late and would have fared better during the reign of the N64. What offended me about that statement is that they're saying that platformers are not welcome after the 5th generation of consoles. Bullshit. Statements such as that means that they don't give two shits about platformers, and not to mention those same people that didn't give a damn about this game, and as well didn't give a damn about other N64 games such as Rocket Robot on Wheels, Gex, and the rest. Believe me, Vexx was released on the right time, and it did meet quite commercial success on sales. And believe me when I say this, if you're a platformer fan as I am, this is a must play if you haven't already. Vexx is one of those 3D platformers that really does challenge the veterans of platform games, and it's easily one of my favorites. My score for Vexx is a 5 fingers out of 5. It was such an astounding game that totally captures the challenge that I want in a platformer. It left me with a great impression, saying that this is indeed a great game. It's darker and more edgier than the common 3D platformers, and it captivates the level designs, gameplay variety, and more. Vexx is much more than what most critics give credit to this game, and I just love it from beginning to end. And I hope that you do too once playing this game. Vexx is available for the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube. Thanks for watching my review on Gex. Join with me next time when I review